Hey all, welcome back. I've got to get more creative with that salute. Welcome back to You're Listening to Radio Revel, Season 3, 4 Decades. This is the last summer update episode. Next time around, I'll be back to the remaining stories that make up this season. Oof. You'll probably hear the high winds in the far background that we're having these days. We've had that heat wave going on here in Spain. Well, that's not quite right. We've had that heat wave going on all over the place. So I can't really complain about the 6 or 7 days of constant 38-degree average highs, can I? No. And no, I'm not going to talk about climate change this time around. Nor am I going to go on about artificial intelligence. I read an op-ed in Politico magazine this morning about how the answer to AI is governmental regulation. Now that's a human intelligence way of getting things done. Why didn't someone think about that before? How about more education? Sorry, the next 30 seconds or so were caught by YouTube as copyright infringement. Like I said, Google it. George Carlin on education. Sorry, George Carlin reference there. Google it. Those of you who are listening to this episode while looking at the video on YouTube might be asking yourselves why you're looking at me making something out of a palette, which has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I've actually made a couple of videos this summer in which the images have nothing to do with the commentary in the soundtrack. And this concept has been with me since I began blogging. I think I was intuitively rebelling against what I was seeing as the norm on the internet. I have consistently, up until this season of the podcast, actually since season 2, in which I retell the Oedipus story, added images to my blog posts that have little or nothing to do with the text. Well, even that's not really true. Right about the time that Mr. Trump won the election in 2016, I thought it would be important to add images that reflected the general idea of the post I was writing. I thought it would help draw traffic. It didn't. Not the fault of the images, or maybe it was. Actually, it was my own fault for not having an active Facebook page or an Instagram or even a Twitter feed. Not a social media addict myself. But before I was concerned about trying to catch the eye of a potential reader, I tended to add pretty images from my own photograph collection, mostly flowers, wildflowers I shot while wandering about in the mountains. Maybe a cloud scene, some rocky peaks. Almost nothing to do with the text. I just liked the idea of not teasing the content of the post with a related image. I tried the trend of making special catchy thumbnails for my YouTube videos. That got started while I was working with a startup platform that went nowhere, a storytelling English learning platform. I and a couple of others made short videos, then I would take a screenshot from the video, add some wildly colored and angled titles. No one watches those 13 or so videos I ended up uploading for season 1 there. And that type of thumbnail, well, while a lot of videos have one, a lot of others don't. Another thing that bites my butt about that type of thumbnail is that it catches your eye, promises you something, but often doesn't deliver on what it promises, only gets you about halfway there. This happens in the titles of the videos as well. I see this a lot while trying to inform myself about the current political melodrama going on in the U.S. Thumbnails and headlines like,
Trump gets fitted for orange jumpsuit,
or
Trump loses his marbles.
trying to catch the attention, maybe even do, but I've learned to be skeptical. Now, I've admitted over and again that the stuff that I make for the podcast, for the YouTube videos that come with the podcast, well, it's not stuff that 100,000 people will subscribe to. And that which has been uploaded will finally become curiosities from the past if I ever do find that special topic that people want to hear me talk about, or want to talk with me about. I think I'm on to that topic, though. I've hinted at it recently, been thinking about it more and more over the past season. It's what Season 4 will become. I've even got a catchy name, catchier than
You're listening to Radio Revel.
though that will remain the brand, the channel name. But the podcast will get a new name, and next season we'll hopefully keep on track on a type of topic that will draw in some listeners and maybe even some participants. Anyway, for those of you wondering what I was working on in that video that accompanied Update 9 and accompanies this update, well, several weeks ago someone threw out a table. I saw it outside what we call a punto limpio, which is a fenced-in space where our villagers can toss out larger trash, furniture, plaster, old windows, that kind of thing. The table was pretty basic, a welded iron bar structure for the legs and a pressed wood chip top with a kind of fake wood formica veneer that had swollen because it happened to rain the day it was tossed onto the tree bank. I dragged that table home, thinking about the times I've gone up to our guest bedroom, which is kind of an office, well, it was my office years ago, and transformed into our library. We don't use this room very much, don't have a lot of guests sleeping over, and it's pretty cold in the winter and horribly hot in the summer, which means it can only be used in the early spring and late fall. But sometimes I go up to that room, close the door, and record episodes or videos. If you check out the link to the language videos I talked about earlier, those were made in that room. But there wasn't a table in that room. I had to perch the laptop on a box on an odd piece of furniture that doesn't have a lot of surface space. Then the mic is kind of off to the side. I figured that if I fixed up this horribly ugly table, I'd be able to slip it into that room and have a space to sit and record without things being precariously balanced here and there. Even though I can only use the space for a few months each year, well, it'll be better than nothing. So that pallet I pulled out of the corral and chopped up and planed and removed nails and sanded and screwed together and sanded and varnished and sanded was the summer project for 2023. And because I consume a lot of furniture videos where it looks like a how-to, the creator may be commenting on the work being done, the materials being used, maybe only silence or the sounds of the work itself, maybe the music. Well, I wanted to do something different, of course, so I just filmed the process and used the images over those podcast episodes. It's all experimental. And I'm using the table right now for the first time. Estrenando. So next time I'll be back with episode 14, one called Betrayal. Hope you'll tune in for it. Cheers!
You're listening to Radio Revel. Listen, like, subscribe, and share. You're listening to Radio Revel.
Listen, like, subscribe, and share.